Good evening, everybody. This is Woodrow, and it is time again for that previews love. Of course, it is the month of May, so we'll be talking about this here May 2019 previews, along with the Marvel and DC previews. The official number is number 368. It's a pretty hefty month, so sit back, grab yourself your favorite beverage, and enjoy the ride. Okay, up first, in the image section of the main previews catalog on pages 46 and 47 is Sea of Stars #1 series premiere. This is a book that has a lot to be excited about. First of all, your writing tandem is Jason Aaron, aka one of the best writers on the planet, and Dennis Hallam. Now, some of you may not recognize the name Dennis Hallam, but rest assured, he too is an extremely accomplished writer and friend of the show. Dennis Hallam is the given name of one Dennis Hopeless. I'm not sure if Dennis is going to use Hallam from here on out, or if for some reason he's using Hallam because it's creator-owned work, but either way, this is your one and only Dennis Hopeless and Jason Aaron writing together with art by Stephen Green. Now, Stephen is a longtime friend of ours, known for a lot of years on the con circuit, fantastic cartoonist, probably best known at this point for his work on the Mignolaverse, Hellboy, and BPRD. But I know he's been very excited about this project. He's been working on it for a long time, and I've seen some of the art, and it is fantastic. And last but certainly not least, the colors are by our good friend Rico Renzi. Now, what's the story about? Well, it is a tale of a space trucker who decides to take his son Caden along on his interstellar route for once, and hijinks ensue. Basically, a disaster rips apart their ship, separating the two, and the dad has to somehow figure out a way as he's running out of air to save himself and then save his son. Meanwhile, his son is somehow manifesting some type of powers, has a talking space monkey, and is riding a space dolphin. So it seems like it's going to be a crazy space adventure. The creative team doesn't get any better than this, and I hope you all come aboard with me, because this is going to be one of those series I have a feeling we talk a lot about on the show. Okay, we're going to stick in the Image Comics section on pages 56 and 57. I'm sure many of you have been wondering, what was Matteo Scalera going to do after Black Science wrapped up? Well, here's our answer. He will be joining none other than Mark Millar for Space Bandits, a 5-issue limited series that is another space adventure, so it's something that Teo's very comfortable with. This sounds a bit like Thelma and Louise in space. Basically, two interstellar felons named Thena Cole and Cody Blue are up to a bunch of shenanigans, and they're both double-crossed, and so they come together for revenge. Look, I'll buy anything that Teo draws. I'm also a big fan of Millar's limited series work, and I think this is two great tastes that will most certainly taste great together. Well, this is going to turn into an Image-orama this month, with good reason. On page 58, you see Black Science number 43, which sadly is the last issue of one of my favorite series of the last decade. And of course, written by Rick Remender with art by Teo Scalera. And I know it might seem odd to mention a book that is concluding, but it is the conclusion, and I hope that this, if nothing else, serves as a reminder to you that are either behind or haven't been reading it, that now is your chance to do so, and or I'm sure soon we'll see collections of the entire run, which it would be great. I mean, if we get like a whole omnibus of this, I would love it. And then on page 59, right here, is the Bitter Root Red Summer Special #1. It's a one-shot written by David F. Walker and Chuck Brown. It's an anthology. It's a one-shot anthology where Sanford and Chris Bruner, Lisa Weber, Daniel Lish, Kari Randolph, and Dietrich Smith all contribute short stories that give us glimpses into the history of the Sangarai family. I wasn't kidding about this being Image-orama. The next page over, page 60, we have Paper Girls number 30. This, like the Black Science discussion on the prior pages, is being mentioned because it is the final issue. It's a double-sized issue that wraps up this amazing series about time-traveling adventures that start out and are centered in the 1980s. Brian K. Vaughan writes it, Cliff Chang and Matt Wilson on art, and another fantastic series that it'll be sad to see it go. In a way, this month is signaling the end of an era at Image, where some of these long-running tentpole series are coming to an end all at once, which hopefully there will be some new books that rise to the occasion and get us going on new long-term journeys. But sayonara, Paper Girls. It was a hell of a ride. Image-O-Rama! Page 70, about 10 pages later, we are still in Image. And, of course, I had to shout out my boy Scotty's I Hate Fairyland, Book 2 hardcover. The first hardcover was amazingly well put together. I'm sure this will be the same. This collects I Hate Fairyland 11 through 20 and the I Hate Image Free Comic Book Day special. It will wrap up the series, so you'll have two gorgeous matching hardcovers adjoining your bookcase for any time you want a good laugh. Enough with the Image already. Okay, fair enough. Finally out of Image-O-Rama into the Dark Horse section on pages 98 and 99, we have Black Hammer, Justice League, Hammer of Justice, number 1 of 5, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Michael Walsh, and covers by Andrea Sorrentino, Yannick Paquette, Yugo Shimizu, and colors by Dave Stewart. This is exactly what you think it is. It is a crossover between Jeff Lemire's fantastic superhero universe of Black Hammer and the Justice League. Listen, it's bizarre, it's surprising, and I have no doubt it will be amazing because we know that Jeff is an absolute perfect steward of DC superhero comics when he's given the opportunity. And if you listen to the show, you know that I think Black Hammer is among the best comics work out there on the shelves currently. So the idea of Jeff being able to bring two things that he loves together like this, I don't see how it can't be anything short of amazing. Okay, we're going to stay in Dark Horse for, on page 114, The Flaming Carrot Comics Omnibus Volume 1 trade paperback, of course written and drawn by Mr. Bob Burden. It is 416 pages, and it's a Dark Horse omnibus, so it's smaller trim. It's 7 by 10. And this collects Flaming Carrot 1, 2, 4 through 11, 25 through 27. And as it shows you here, including the famous crossover with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I can't profess to be well-versed in the Flaming Carrot, but it is something that I have always heard great things about. And I know my boos are big fans, so I will be buying this to finally catch up on Bob Burden's masterpiece. Jumping to the IDW section on page 138, we have H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau, number 1 of 2, co-written, I should say, by Ted Adams and Gabriel Rodriguez with art by Gabriel Rodriguez. He is, of course, best known and will always have a special place in my heart for being the artist behind Lock and Key. And this is their comic adaptation of H.G. Wells' famous story involving a strange island and a wacky scientist who does all kinds of creations and creates a bunch of monsters. And as the solicit says, the ultimate question is, just because we can do something, does that mean that we should? Okay, we're in the back at the independent section of the main catalog on page 268. We have a featured item, and that is Second Coming number 1. You may recall that I talked about this in a prior video because it was originally solicited as a DC comic, but DC, I think, took some flack relative to the subject matter, and I decided to just give the book back to Mark Russell, the writer-creator, and Richard Pace, the artist, and they resolicited it through Ahoy Comics. This is a story of basically Jesus hanging out with Superman, and I'm sure all kinds of craziness ensues, but I very much am looking forward to this, but keep in mind that it is probably some sensitive subject matter, particularly based on your given religious tendencies, but if it floats your boat, give it a try. I know one thing, it'll be very well written, and it'll have fantastic art. Okay, on page 317 in the Fantagraphics section, we have Paper Peril, which is by Jean-Baptiste Bourgeois. This looks crazy. It looks thought-provoking. It's about a protagonist who braves a whimsical world of sinuous shapes and scribbly ink lines in his quest to become an artist, drawing inspiration from classic illustrators like R.O. Bleckman, Saul Steinberg, Sir Quentin Blake, Tove Jansson, and Tomi Unger. Cartoonist Jean-Baptiste Bourgeois explores the exhilaration and chaos of the creative process, a lovingly crafted ode to the pitfalls of artistic expression. On page 318, I'm so glad to see our friends are back. From Sunshine Valley, we've got the White Fox and Hippo and Pig on their continuing adventure. It is the Dam Keeper, Book 3, Return of the Shadows. We talked about the first 2 volumes on the show. I assure you we'll talk about the 3rd volume as well. But this is written by Robert Kondo with art by Daisuke Tsutsumi, and it's a must-have. On the adjacent page, page 319, is another featured item. This is Frank Cho, Ballpoint Beauties, the hardcover, written by Frank Cho with an assist by Mark Schultz, with art by Frank Cho. It is a 9x12, 120-page hardcover art book. It's $29.95. I believe it's 30% off in DCB service. This is a book that I will not be pre-ordering because I backed the Kickstarter campaign. So I'll be receiving a Kickstarter version of the same material. But for those of you that didn't know about the Kickstarter or passed on it, here is your chance to get this art book. Look, any Frank Cho art book is worth having, but this one is just something to behold. He has been obsessed with drawing hyper-detailed pieces, generally of beautiful women, using ballpoint pens. And it's just, this picture does not do it justice, but if you go to Frank's socials, you'll see some of his process work. It is absolutely mind-blowingly stunning, and I just cannot wait to have this on my shelf. Okay, that wrapped up the main catalog for the month, so we're going to jump into DC previews. On page 4, under the DC Inc. imprint, is Batman Nightwalker, the graphic novel. Based on the novel by Marie Lu, this is a graphic novel adapted by writer Stuart Moore with art, and this is the big hook here, by Chris Wildgoose. Now, I had the chance to meet Chris at last New York Comic Con through a fellow friend, Tony Esmond, and Wildgoose is an amazing, amazing artist that is not yet a household name, but I assure you that in a year or two he will be at the top of the craft. So this is a young ages book about a younger version of Bruce Wayne, but frankly it doesn't matter what this book is about, because the idea of getting an entire graphic novel of Chris's art is enough to entice me. But I'm hoping that this book will appeal to my younger 2 sons to boot. So check it out, Batman Nightwalker, the graphic novel. Okay, I see you, DC. I see you, Bendis. Things are starting to get real interesting. You know, when DC threw a lot of money at Bendis to bring him aboard, there was a lot of hype. I think he's put out some good work so far, but I think now we're starting to see the wider influence on these 2 pages. On page 12, you have Lois Lane. I'm sorry, let's try that again. On page 12, you have Jimmy Olsen, #1. And on page 13, you have Lois Lane, #1. Now, why do I mention Bendis here? Well, look who is writing Jimmy Olsen, #1. None other than Mr. Matt friggin' Fraction, with art by Steve Lieber. It's a 12-issue limited series. No one is going to convince me that Fraction would go over to DC to write a DCU superhero universe book without Bendis coaxing him into it. And I can't wait, because I think this is the kind of book that Fraction can probably have a great time with. A character that is well regarded, but there's a lot of room for interpretation. And then on the next page is the triumphant return of Mr. Greg Rucka to DC Comics. Now, Greg has come and gone from DC so many times that I don't know that we can put the direct credit to Bendis, but I think it's all part of that same Keiretsu. Greg and Mike Perkins take a stab at Lois Lane, and listen, I mean, these are 2 great characters that haven't gotten a lot of run on their own, so I am highly intrigued, as I'm sure my man Dap is. So check them both out. They're both 12-issue limited series. Should be a lot of fun. Okay, last but not least, we jump into the Marvel previews for the month. And of course, fittingly, start off right at the beginning of the catalog with the House of X #1 of 6, written by Jonathan Hickman, with art by one of the greatest Marvel artists of the moment, who is carving out quite a name for himself doing their big event books. That is Mr. Pepe Larraz. And look, you all know what this is. This is Hickman, after many, many rumors finally coming to fruition. He has returned to Marvel and been given the keys to the X-Men kingdom. So, it's usually a good idea not to have too high of an expectation, because sometimes expectations can get the best of you. But when you read the solicit to this, you realize that Marvel is putting all of its eggs in Hickman's basket. I will quote, "Superstar writer Jonathan Hickman takes the reins of the X-Men universe. Since the release of Uncanny X-Men #1, there have been 4 seminal moments in the history of the X-Men. Giant-Sized X-Men, X-Men Age of Apocalypse, New X-Men. 4 iconic series that introduced a new era for Marvel's mutants and revolutionized the X-Men. In House of X, Charles Xavier reveals his master plan for mutant kind, one that will bring mutants out of the shadows of mankind and into the light once more." Now here's something to both excite and delight. That is the history of the Marvel Universe, written by Mark Waid, with art by Javier Rodriguez and Alvaro Lopez. It's everything you ever wanted to know about the Marvel Universe in one lavishly illustrated series. From the Big Bang to the twilight of existence, History of the Marvel Universe chronicles completely, for the first time, everything that was or will be. Lushly illustrated text tells the complete story of the MU, revealing previously unknown secrets and serving as the ultimate reference book for Marvel fans. This is the first of 6 issues, and I am intrigued. I mean, look, as someone who cut his teeth on Ohatmu, this is fascinating to me. I'm not sure if there's any grand plan for doing it, or maybe it's something that Mark wanted to do for a long time and they finally gave him the green light. But either way, I am 1,000% on board, and I hope you are too. In keeping with the Mark Waid love, on pages 20 and 21, we have Invisible Woman #1 of 5. Written by Waid with art by Mattia de Ulis, this is, after all of these decades, the first time Our Lady, Sue Storm, has her own book. And we know that Waid loves the Fantastic Four. He has written some fantastic Fantastic Four stories, most notably in partnership with Michael Roingo, rest in peace. And I can't wait to see what he has planned for Susie. I'm sure you're excited too. What the what? On page 34, something I thought we would never ever see, that is the return of the Ecstatics. Giant-Size Ecstatics #1, with the original art team, Peter Milligan on writing and Michael Allred on art. For those that don't know, the Ecstatics was what X-Force became after Rob Liefeld wrapped up. It was a complete about-face, different art style, different tenor, different set of characters, and it was essentially a reality show. It was this group of characters, well, it was a mix of this group of characters, and they were paid by a corporation to go on adventures and create ratings for television. It was a commentary on pop culture of the time, and certainly since Ecstatics came out, our obsession with reality content has only grown by leaps and bounds. So I'm excited to see this back, and as I said, I'm surprised, but I'm very happily surprised. If there was ever any doubt that Marvel Comics cared about me, Jason Wood, on a personal basis, that's all been put to bed, because there's no one on the earth that wanted to see this book more than me. That is the official handbook of the Marvel Universe Omnibus hardcover. It collects the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, the 1983 OG series, #1 through 15, in omniboo form. Now let's acknowledge something. The history of these characters has changed dramatically for most of them from since 1983. I mean, we're talking 35 years. So, it's a bit of a strange reference volume, but this was the catalyst to me becoming a comic nerd. Without these issues, I don't become a collector and I don't do EOC. So this is like patient zero for me. And I have wanted a collection of these issues forever. And now it's finally happening. So, cannot wait. And it'll be really fun to go back and read through the entries and just compare them to the status quo today. I'm betting it's going to be mind-boggling in almost every case. So, fun archival material, and I hope it sells well enough that we get follow-ups, because there were follow-up versions of Oh Hot Moo, and I'd love to see omniboo collections of every one of them, as I'm sure you would. Okay, and there we have it. That wraps up another month. It's a nice cross-section of indie books and big two books. A lot to be excited about, as always. And you're probably tired of hearing me say this, but number one, thank you so much for your continued support. It means more than you'll ever know. And two, remember, what you see on these videos from Dab, Vince, and I are only a small fraction of the books that we buy and read each month. And so, as I will always do, when I finalize my order for the month, I will post the entirety of it on the Patreon website so that you can see all the other goodness that I am buying and enjoying. And please be sure to continue to share with us, either on the Patreon site or the Facebook group, the books that you are most excited about from the solicits, because I'm always looking to add some things that I missed on the first, second, or third read-through. Have a great month, and I will catch you on the flip.